you're sitting on your prayer mat, what does it remind you of? What are you doing?
Remembering God.
He's remembering God on his prayer mat. Well, that's a lovely answer. Shall we give Tala a little clap?
Encounters like that are typical of Wild Green Primary's approach to teaching about religion. The 400 pupils and staff at this school in Sutton Coldfield share their experience of different faiths to make what could be a dry and difficult subject fresh and alive. Today we joined them as years 2 and 6 find out about Islam.
What actually happens in lessons, particularly in RE actually, if we're having a lesson that's on Islam and we have a couple of children in the class that are of the Islamic faith, then what would happen is that those children often, if it was appropriate, would take centre stage actually, and they would be talking to the class about how they go to the mosque, about what they do as a family and so on. The whole thing becomes much more enriched, and instead of having a situation where you're just learning something perhaps from a book or from the teacher saying, perhaps from their own experience or from somebody else's experience, what's happening is that the children themselves are sharing their faith, and I think that's really quite exciting actually. And the other children in the class react beautifully to it, and it enhances the whole ethos of the school.
It's not only the children who are put in the hot seat at this school.
When it's Ramadan, do you feel hungry?
When it's Ramadan, do I feel hungry? Oh yes, I do. I feel hungry, but
RE coordinator Idris Gaby, a Muslim and theology graduate, is happy to talk about his own faith when teaching Islam to his Year 2 class.
And that's part of worship, so you have to do it. Even though you do feel hungry, that's part of my faith.
It's very exciting teaching a subject like this to a group of children who have no knowledge or very little knowledge of that particular faith. So it's exciting for me to actually deliver something to them which is quite personal to me. And for the children, you've got to remember that they have absolutely no knowledge of this area, and you have to take them back to square one, right back to the basics. They've never seen the inside of a mosque, so it's a matter of introducing these things to them.
Could you just put this on where you think is the dome? That's right, well done. What shape's the dome?
Great big circle.
Could you draw a great big circle for me? That's it.
In terms of the teaching of Islam within this school, indeed in any other religion, what we do is we teach the children in as much detail as we can about those religions so that the children have a really good understanding about what a person would do who is of that faith, rather than teach the children to actually partake in the religion. What we want to do is get it so that the children are very well informed, so that perhaps in time, if they so choose, they can make their own decision about perhaps which religion they'd like to espouse. Also, if we have children in the classes, as we do here, that are of different faiths, what it means is that the different children in the class learn and understand a little bit more about where those children and where those families are coming from, and it helps the racial harmony in our school.
Who's got a question for Halima and Tala? Louise, you've got a question.
When do you go to the mosque? Sometimes after school.
Sometimes after school. And do you meet your friends there? Yeah, you do. Do you like going to the mosque? Ronan, you've got a question, haven't you?
How do you pray? We bow down here with our hands here like that.
Head teacher Peter Barnett and his staff have been commended by Ofsted, who were impressed by the racial harmony within the school. About 10% of the children are from the ethnic minorities. Peter Barnett puts it down to encouraging an ethos of mutual respect and sees the RE curriculum as an integral part of this.
How's your planning coming on for this Year 2 lesson?
It's working well for me and the children are enjoying it. Yeah. What I've tried to do is just to give them a different approach to RE really. Right. And then I've thought, well, hold on, how could I use a prayer rug or a prayer mat in this particular lesson? And I've even got a little prayer mat as well. It's one that my little boy at home uses. Well, we've had a look at these prayer mats, and now you're going to have a go designing and decorating your own prayer mat. So, we're going to use these sheets that we started yesterday, and what you're going to do for me is have a go designing a mosque on your prayer mat.
As a class teacher, I had to introduce to them what a mosque looked like, how different it is from other places of worship, and exactly what happens inside of a mosque. And I've tried to make it as interesting as possible for them by bringing in lots of visual stimulus, lots of artifacts, and getting them involved in designing and decorating their own prayer mats. Don't feel that you can't bring maths into RE or literacy into RE or geography into RE. Cross-curricular areas like this is definitely going to enhance and enrich the children's learning. And this is something that I've done in this particular lesson. I've brought art as well as maths into this subject. The children are using 2D shapes. What I would say to teachers who are finding it difficult in this particular area is don't feel that you have to give children the theory, that they don't have to write down lines and lines and lines related to what people do in that particular faith.
What do you want me to do with this, Tala?
Put it down on the floor.
Put it on the floor. Okay, then let's put it on the floor. Right. Now, Tala, you've got the prayer mat on the floor. Do you sit on the prayer mat? Okay, just sit down on the prayer mat for me.
If I was teaching a different subject, for instance, if I was teaching Hinduism or Sikhism, I would try and search for children who come from that particular faith background in our school. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have a child of that particular faith in my class. I could always bring a child from a different class and say, is it possible you could come into our lesson and talk about your particular faith?
And what do you put on here, Tala?
A Quran.
A Quran. You put a Quran on there. And do you read your Quran?
Well, my learning objective in this particular lesson is for the children to just get a basic understanding and feeling of really just the mosque itself, and just to generally just to identify the mosque and have a link that the mosque and Muslims go together.
Well, it's very important for most Muslims to go to a mosque. They go to mosque to worship and to pray to God, and for other things as well, like funerals, and for weddings, and during Ramadan. So Muslims go to a mosque for all these different reasons.
Do you take your shoes off in the mosque, or do you leave them on?
When Muslims go into a mosque, they have to take their shoes off. And there's a special place where you put your shoes. But if you have a look at this picture, everybody in that picture, have they got their shoes on?
No.
No, they've taken their shoes off.
Why aren't there any women in that picture?
Why aren't there any women in that picture? Well, that's a really, really good question. Well, in that particular picture, and in most mosques, what they have is that they have two separate halls. They have one hall for the women to pray in, and then they have another hall for the men to pray in.
That's something that they picked up from the photograph. And of course, they do need to know the answer to that question. And why haven't they got any shoes on? Where are the seats in the mosque? So these are typical questions that children will come out with, which you sort of do have to prepare yourself for.
The way that our coordinators work in our school is basically they are the person that is the expert in that subject. That's the way that we work. So for the RE coordinator, they're the person that sets up the scheme of work and actually works out, often with teachers, what individual lessons that they would work, how the teachers would plan and so on. And then they're the person that the teachers would come back to and refer to. So if they have a difficulty with a particular lesson, they would refer to the RE coordinator. The RE coordinator might order in resources that teachers would want, and the RE coordinator might perhaps then have release time to go in and to help and to support people in lessons as ever they were requesting.
In Year 6, the children returned to the subject of Islam, and today RE coordinator Idris Gaby is guiding and setting up their programme of work.
Now, there's a purpose for these towers. There is a purpose for them.
To say the call of prayer so people can come and pray.
That's right, well done, that is the right answer. And we're going to listen to the call of prayer now, which you would hear from these two minarets. That particular call of prayer, it lasts about, say, 3 or 4 minutes, and you would hear that call of prayer said from these minarets.
In Year 6, I'm expecting the children to actually look at the role of the mosque in greater detail. The areas that they could look at in the mosque is the ablution area, the main prayer hall, the role of the imam and his roles and responsibility. And also, they could look beyond the role of the mosque. They could actually have a link with the importance of the mosque within the community and how it acts as a service for the Muslim community.
We've got the dome over here, and the dome is very high up, and you've got the worshippers who would sit on the floor, on the patterned floor at the bottom over here. What's the purpose of the dome on the mosque?
The purpose of the dome is to keep the hot air out.
That's right, yeah, the hot air rises up into the dome and it keeps what side of the mosque cool, yeah?
The bottom of the mosque.
That's right, where the people are praying, the bottom end of the mosque, it keeps it nice and cool. Is there another reason?
Because it reverberates the voices so everyone can hear.
That's right, so it acts as a loudspeaker. It does act like a loudspeaker. in Birmingham, you would find that there are areas of the mosque which are designated for ablution. This is a new word, ablution. So when a Muslim has to go and pray, it needs to carry out an ablution. So you have the outwardly cleanliness and then you have the inwardly cleanliness. The outwardly cleanliness basically involves going to the ablution area, washing your hands, washing your face, washing your feet. So the inwardly cleanliness is the prayer itself. Just come and have a sit down. Yeah?
Once again, Idris invites a Muslim pupil to share in the question and answer session.
How many times do you have to wash your hands?
3 times for each of your hands, each of your feet, and 3 times for your face as well.
Head teacher Peter Barnett catches up with Idris. He wants to know how he intends to develop the children's understanding of Islam.
Have you got a similar approach for the Year 6 class then?
A bit more detail, more theory, and more related to geography and DT. I'm bringing geography and DT into the Year 6 class. Obviously, they're a higher class, so I'm expecting a little bit more.
How are you bringing the DT in there?
Well, I'm getting them to actually make compasses,
right.
But it also covers geography at the same time.
Right.
All mosques in Birmingham, in London, or in any part of the world have a particular direction to face towards. What country do you think they pray towards?
Mecca.
Mecca. And where is Mecca? Does anybody know which country Mecca is? Yes?
Saudi Arabia.
That's right, it is in Saudi Arabia. Well done. So Adnan, do you want to come over here? Okay, I want you to draw a line using the ruler. Just point to the direction using the ruler. So that's the direction Muslims in England would pray towards Saudi Arabia.
The children use their geography skills to locate Mecca, and Idris blends D&T into his lesson by showing the children a special prayer mat and then challenging them to design their own.
They would use a prayer mat like this with a compass in the middle of it, and that would help them indicate which way Mecca is.
Using the interactive whiteboard, Idris shows the children a Mecca locating compass.
Now, Lawrence, can you just come over here, please, and just point towards which way the compass is pointing towards the direction of Mecca. So we now know that Muslims in Birmingham face towards that direction when they pray towards Mecca. One group is going to be making this compass. Now, I've written out some instructions of exactly what you need to do. So you need to get into twos, right? So one person is going to be making this table and grid, which indicates all the different towns in England, and they're going to indicate a number next to each town, and the other person is going to be making the actual compass and the dial. You're going to have a go at making one of those.
I would like them to remember that you have to be clean before you do go into the mosque. I'm making a Mecca direction finder. It shows you which way Mecca is from. For instance, Stoke-on-Trent. What I remember most is how they pray and when they pray and where they pray and stuff like that. When they want to pray 5 times a day, they just get out the Mecca direction finder and point to whichever way they need.
But I'm very passionate about RE, and really it's me educating children about all faiths. You have to sort of give children a greater understanding of what happens and why certain faiths carry out acts of worship which are very personal to them.